It was a pretty natural thing in that. So when I was 13, I started playing guitar. I I had a friend who was really into music, and he would actually get he was like maybe 2 years younger than me, and so when we were kids, he had guitar magazines and stuff. So we started getting into he was into a lot of like hard rock stuff, like a lot of the hair metal stuff, Motley Crue and Poison and all that. But two of the bands that he kind of got me into early on were Guns N' Roses and AC/DC. And through an aunt and uncle, I was also at that time I was big into, I still love them, but I was big into Van Halen really early on. So that real hard rock stuff. So of course, Slash and Eddie Van Halen and all these guitar gods were all over the guitar magazines. So we really got into that, and I kind of started a little love affair with the electric guitar. And at age 13, I got my first kind of starter crappy electric guitar and started taking lessons and things. Went on and played in some bands just for fun and all this. And eventually it got to the point where I remember with my band in high school, we'd go and rent gear. Sometimes we'd rent a mixer and some speakers, and we'd do a little basement show. We'd borrow like a 4-track or an 8-track recorder and rent a couple microphones and figure out how to set all that up and record a demo or something. And I always loved that side of it. I was kind of fascinated by it, and I was always the guy who wanted to plug in the microphones and point them at stuff and figure out how the 4-track machine worked. And I wasn't some young genius at it. I was scratching my head and plugging things into the wrong place and all that. But I loved experimenting with it, and the idea of the first time I recorded something and then rewound the tape and heard it back, I was like, this is amazing.
Magic.
I thought it was so cool. Magic. I just loved that I could do that. And or just me in my bedroom. I got a little Tascam 2-input 4-track machine, and I had some early sort of music making software, and I'd record like a drum and bass thing that I had programmed off the computer. I'd record that onto one mono track. I recorded a vocal onto one mono track, and then 2 guitars. And I remember recording the first guitar and then recording the second one, and I panned them hard left and hard right, and it sounded like the biggest thing I had ever heard. It sounded so cool, and I was just hooked. I was like, this is the most amazing thing ever. And on from there, I started reading recording magazines. I got a subscription to Recording Magazine and I think Home Recording Magazine. I think those were 2 different ones. And I would just flip through there and look at pictures of microphones and read gear reviews and stuff, barely knowing what any of it was. And then, seeing pictures of an SSL console and things like that, and just going, like, this is amazing. And all the while, just kind of slowly, as technology evolved, I got like a little mini disc 4-track recording thing, and I probably spent all of my money on technology that went out of date like so quickly. But it was just the time, and that's how you learned. And I just, the bug got me, and it just went down the rabbit hole from there gradually, but definitely it definitely like captured me full on.
What's amazing as a musician is when you write music or you write a song, there's something now where there was nothing before. So before you existed, there was not this song, and you've created something from nothing, and it is like magic. And then the same thing as an audio engineer, where there was nothing and now there's this recording. There's something tangible that you can play and hold a CD in your hand or an album. And I always found that was kind of like magic. It's like your secret magic trick that you get to perform.
I still love that. I still feel that way in a it's a little bit different now because I know what's going on, and it's like more of a it's more of a job. It's more of just of like a task that's part of my job to do that. But I'm happy that I still get that feeling, and that still brings me great satisfaction.
Do you think that playing the guitar has helped you as a engineer and producer in the studio when working with other musicians? Like you can speak their language better, or you understand more what's going on with the instruments. Does that help at all?
100% all of that you just mentioned. Um, it's still a musical job, even though there's a big technical aspect of it. You still have to be a musical individual to do this job. I don't. There are certain engineering, audio engineering positions that would be far more on the technical side, and there are some brilliant people that handle huge broadcasts and all this stuff that I would be, totally lost on. But in terms of working with artists and musicians and songwriters and so on, I think you have to have musicality or yeah. I mean, I don't know it any other way. So, but I just can't imagine how it I can't imagine trying to do this job without that. And I definitely do see where that has been an advantage. Absolutely. And it's very common. I mean, it's more common than not for that to be the case. But you really do need that. So yeah, that's helped immensely. You got to know about music, no matter what your instrument, no matter what it is.
You said your love of audio kicked in when you were playing in bands and figuring out equipment and recording. What is the worst band name that you've been in of all the bands, or are there a few that are, or are they all awesome? Are you biased and you only had incredible band names?
I don't know about incredible, but there were probably some really goofy ones as a kid before I actually started playing music. I do remember me and my friends, we made up some fake bands and just, we would just kind of like goof on that and make up fake bands. So those probably had some goofy names, but actual bands, I don't think there was ever a bad band name. And I'm going to flip that question to in high school, my band was called kind of a mouthful. But it was called Mercury Solstice.
Okay.
And the singer was like a massive Smashing Pumpkins fan. So he took those words out of a line from a Smashing Pumpkins song. Which one I don't even know. But he came up with the name Mercury Solstice, and I thought that was really cool. And we had some like kind of like funky, really cheesy digital art, almost like a corona of a sun of the sun, or that kind of looked tie-dyed, and it said Mercury Solstice in the middle. And
you committed. You went all in with that band name, which I appreciate.
We committed. I thought it was pretty cool. I thought for like, I thought it was pretty good. I still think that's decent for a high school band name. I was like, yeah.
It sounds like you deep down you're still hoping for a reunion, that it's still possible that this band could come out and with your newfound your newfound expertise in the studio, you'd have killer recordings. Anyways, I'm just planting a seed. You don't have to respond to that. If iPods existed back when we were 16, what would I find on your iPod? A few songs, a few artists, a few albums.
Oh. It would have been rock music from the 90s. That's my all-time favorite music is music of the 90s. And even to narrow it down further, like the early and mid 90s, 1990 to 94 would be like one period where there was just so much amazing music.
Yeah.
And then in the second half as well, but yeah, absolutely. The music of the 90s. And that would have spanned a huge, there would be like some pop music on there. There would be rock stuff, hard rock, the Seattle bands, the big Seattle bands, Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, Alice in Chains and Stone Temple Pilots. I know they're not from Seattle.
How insane So yeah, 90, like 91 to 94 is like the craziest period for rock music. And 91,
Bonkers.
have you seen what happened in 91? So 91, there's Metallica, the Black Album, there's Chili Peppers, Blood, Sex, Sugar, Magic. There's 91. It was like every big artist put out a huge album. So your Soundgarden in 91, Nirvana Nevermind is 91, I believe.
I believe it's 91. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So I've seen articles
It's
like
insane.
1991, the greatest year. Yeah, Alice in Chains and man, it's on Pearl Jam, 91.
Yep.
Is that 10 that came out in 91? It was nuts. Just
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Oh, it
Every
was.
few weeks, it was like greatest of all time albums that came out every few weeks that year.
Yeah. And then all of these bands had their like follow-up albums after that. I was going to say second album, but yeah. But obviously Soundgarden was putting out albums in the 80s, and Nirvana had Bleach in like 89 and all this. And so but yeah, all of these bands had follow-up albums to those 91, 92 albums. So 93 and 94, these bands had albums that were, like as big. It's crazy. It was a crazy time to be a kid getting into music, and that music just captured me 100%, and I still love it. It's still what I listen to at least 50% of the time. I throw on music from that era, and it's just it like takes me back. I love it. I absolutely love it.
I have a quote here that comes into us from another guest, and this ties together because this man produced some of the greatest 90s albums in rock. So this is Mr. David Bottrell, who's done some Tool albums, Muse, Stained, and this is what he has to say about what he loves most about Mr. Kevin Dietz as a person and as a musician and engineer and producer. So Mr. David Bottrell says, we worked on projects for Circa Survive, Stone Sour, and Placebo together. I started working with Kev. That's how much he knows you. He just calls you Kev. When he was fresh out of Metalworks Institute. He was thorough and enthusiastic then, and I've watched him develop into a fantastic engineer and producer, and I'm sure he'll be producing great music for years to come. So that's from rock producer legend, Mr. David Bottrell.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you for the kind words and for the many years of mentorship. To say I learned a ton from David Bottrell is an understatement. He's I've learned so much from him. His resume speaks for itself. The Placebo album I mentioned, he produced that one as well, and just amazing learning experiences, and super grateful for those times and to get to work on those projects, learn from him. Just crazy. Very fortunate.
And then Circa Survive, that was Blue Sky something. It's
Blue
3
Sky
words.
Noise, yeah.
Blue Sky Noise. I remember listening to that when it came out. I saw Circa Survive at the Taste of Chaos Festival way back in Ottawa. This is like early 2000s with the Deftones. That's like almost all I remember. I think Deftones, Atreyu, Circa Survive. It was like a bunch of those big ones.
Amazing.